Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this Ask the Expert session on how you can develop more engaging applications with Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365. I'm Mike Amerlon. I work on the Microsoft 365 ecosystem marketing team. I work with a lot of great people across a wide range of technologies, covering things like Teams and Graph and SharePoint and Office applications and going into Windows. So many different great things are going on, and I am so excited to be joined today by basically kind of a world-class set of folks who can, are experts in, a number of different technologies as well, covering things like Graph. I've got, Ben Summers, I've got Victor Whelan, I've got Ashish Trivedi, I've got Daniel Wessels, I've got Daniel Pluma, I've got Annie Price, who's helping us as well, Kumar Krishnasamy, and Wes Hackett, and I think I mentioned Victor, and also joined by Phil Graham Karantang from the crew to sort of help us along with this. So got a lot of great folks who can answer your questions. Hopefully you're busy typing away and sort of entering them into the overall chat bit of infrastructure. Just a really quick thing, of course, the Microsoft Code of Conduct, we want to make sure that, as we're having conversations, we always keep it respectful and always focused to make sure that there's no, harassment or anything like that going on. So you know the rules, and just want to make sure that it's a great conversation. So in our session, we talked about all the different ways that you can actually take your applications and extend them with Microsoft 365 technologies. And really this happens kind of in three ways. One is you can actually take a lot of the ingredients of Microsoft 365 and then go embed them into your applications. And the way to do that is to sign in with Microsoft Identity and then connect via Microsoft Graph or some of our other REST APIs to go leverage a lot of those building blocks from Microsoft 365. So sometimes I'll see people who are like, okay, I'm going to go store a whole bunch of PDFs or some docx's in Azure storage and those kinds of things. And that's actually a great opportunity sometimes to say like, no, you can actually, if your customers have Microsoft 365, store the documents in SharePoint, and then you can access them and you can leverage them, and there's graph controls and all kinds of good stuff for actually being able to take some of that content from Microsoft 365 and show it in your applications so that you don't have to build that yourself. The other side of this is really this concept of extensions to Microsoft 365. I mean, we're all busy. I'm looking at Teams right now as we speak. You're looking at Teams as we speak. You're probably using applications like Outlook to go communicate. You're probably starting your day off by looking at a SharePoint portal. And so, these are all places where you can embed your application. And so we have a number of different ways to go embed extensions. And then finally, building experiences across a number of different devices through technologies like, obviously building on Windows. There's a lot of great stuff there for building rich applications, but then also for building cross-platform applications across iOS and Android and, Mac OS as well. Okay, so I'm just going to go over some of the new stuff just to kind of maybe whet your appetite for a number of different topics, a number of different things that we announced and talked about here at Ignite. Each of these actually has AKA links. With Microsoft Ignite, you might have noticed that the content in the kind of the main forums, the main digital breakouts, I mean, obviously these are kind of the top level topics that have all the different sort of broad announcements and the broad things, but we also have a lot of content for getting into the depth of a number of different topics. So for example, in the case of Microsoft Graph, there's just, as always, there's always a number of new technologies because as we release new REST APIs, that's kind of a new capability that you can go connect to and add into your application. I think the big thing is that, we now have this capability for Graph connectors. So now Graph has this ability to go ingest data, to go pull it in. I took a look at a lot of the APIs for Graph connectors. I haven't built my own app for it, but it seems like it's a pretty cool and pretty streamlined API. It's some REST that you can go call to go push in content into Graph, and then from there you get a lot of magic from that. So check that out. To-do APIs, those are now generally available. You can take a look at that. We have a number of new different APIs, some in the space of compliance and data lifecycle and e-discovery, some that are kind of related to Project Cortex or Syntex type of products in terms of being able to actually go start to do things with taxonomy. We have a number of facilitating technologies, single sign-on for Teams and Office applications. So if you're building a Teams or Office add-in, now you'll get single sign-on for that as well. This is something that was added to SharePoint Framework about a year ago, year and some change. And so, that technology is just spreading across Microsoft 365. Resource-specific consent. You'll know it if you need it. It's something that makes administrators' lives a lot easier. As a developer, it's something you should be aware of. We've extended the Graph PowerShell SDK, always great Graph Toolkit updates. These are controls you can embed in your application, improving the Java SDK coverage, and then there's also publisher verification, which we can get into as well. Just talking about the number of different new extension capabilities. The big thing that's kind of pretty cool is this ability to go extend meetings. You have HTML, you can now append that to, for example, the right-hand side of this meeting window that you're now looking at. Imagine your content here. And so what this really allows developers to do is actually build these really tailored meeting experiences. So think of a job interview type of meeting experience, or a sales call type of meeting experience, or a developer debugging session even, or something cool like that, where that you have HTML on the right-hand side of your Teams window, you have the conversation going on in the main window, you can share cards, lots of great stuff there. Background add-ins and Outlook. This is, this is kind of a, there's a lot of infrastructure under the water here, but what this really supports is this ability to run JavaScript that can do things behind the scenes, like, for example, look at the content inside of your email and maybe suggest things. So there's a lot of power that comes from that, and this is something that you'll probably see more of, is now you can build add-ins for Outlook and maybe other applications, maybe at some point, that can run in the background and do a number of different things, low-code capabilities with Office scripts. And then, of course, SharePoint Framework really is this, a really foundational, easy way to go bootstrap getting JavaScript code into SharePoint, but actually now you can also build really rich and robust Teams applications. We're always extending that. You can build personal apps in Teams. You can build tabs inside of Teams. I'm sure you'll be able to build meetings extensibility points through SharePoint Framework in probably just a matter of time. It's a really popular foundational technology. And then we get into Windows. And with Windows, we have a number of new announcements focusing on things like Project Reunion, which allows you to take the controls and take the user interface framework and decouple it from Windows. You can actually use it in more places. And so that allows for a lot more power. You can use it in a number of different frameworks, whether it's a new UWP application or an older MFC application, those and everything in between. Dual screen experiences for Duo, improvements to MSIX and connections to continuous integration and continuous deployment pipelines. So many different things. So that is the whirlwind landscape. These are all the different AKA links. If you're really interested in something, you could go dive into it. But of course, you can also ask questions as well. So, with that, maybe we can, go get into the questions. Let me go bring up my chat window. Let's see. All right. Going over into the questions, I know that the audience has been, looking at a number of different things and sort of covering some of the questions already. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just going to go double check this real quick. So I think we've added a number of different links, and I think we're posting them in the chat, so there'll be a lot easier to go access. We also have a lot of great blog content on dev.microsoft.com/Microsoft365/blogs. So we should have all the, every time we have a major event like a build or an Ignite, we have this sort of Uber blog post with all the different links to all the different sessions and content. So you can definitely check that out there too. That will have a lot of links to things like, the keynotes and those things as well. Cool. Yeah, if you've got questions, feel free to ask. Feel free to go dive in and go ask some different questions. Let's see, any other questions popping up? Well, so maybe we can go dive in, since we've got so many world-class experts on the line. Victor, if you're maybe comfortable talking, any sort of things that stuck out from Ignite, that you've seen that are kind of interesting and curious for you?
Yeah, I would say that the most two exciting parts is some of the updates to the adaptive cards coming in short and long term. I think that those are great new things that will come both for how we build these kind of adaptive cards, but also new experience in adaptive cards. But actually, the thing that I thought was I'm most excited about is actually not on your screens here, but it's a very, very related service called Azure Communication Services.
Oh,
it comes out of the Azure platform, but it's an amazing way for you to create those kind of video, audio, and chat experiences and create a custom interface, but have it also integrated to Microsoft Teams. So you can create a new virtual online meeting. And we actually been part of a preview program for a couple of months of building out a new virtual visit solutions for a large healthcare client. So I think that's probably one of the coolest services right now to be able to do that proper WebRTC video and audio communications interface, both for mobile and web.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a great area. I should have added that to the overall decks. Yeah, great call. Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing is, there's always been a lot of interest in how do I embed, audio, video, phone conversations into my applications. And, for a lot of developers, what they've been able to do is you take the Teams meeting experience and it's got graph APIs for going and being able to schedule meetings. And so what people can do is they can go maybe build their front end, build their custom application. They can say schedule a meeting at 8 p.m. tonight. They click a button, it uses the Graph API, it schedules the meeting, you get a web join link so you can go hand that to your users. And then when 8 o'clock rolls around, the people who have the team subscription, they can join the meeting. The people who have the guest link, they can join the meeting. So it's a pretty customized experience. In fact, with meetings extensibility, it'll get even more customized. But of course, people do know that they're joining a Teams meeting, which is fine. But sometimes developers actually want something even more tailored. They actually want to go ahead and they just want to build a call experience straight into their applications, no Teams web join link in the middle. And so Azure Communication Services is a great choice for that. They're working towards, and they've got an SDK for a number of different controls and components that you can embed. It's also got core communication capabilities, so you can do like SMS messaging. If you just want to go code with WebRTC, you can go do that as well and build your own user experience. And so, it's a good scalable solution. And we're also working to kind of make it, even easier to kind of span across the two different technologies as well. So you can get started in Teams, and we're working towards it, being extensible, so you can, use Azure Communication Services to further customize and work with it as well. So it's a really great, new addition, and I know there's a lot of developers who really want those kind of deeply customized experiences as well. So hope you enjoy it. Hope you all get to dig into it. Yeah. How about you, Daniel Wessels? Sorry to put you on the spot, but any?
No worries. Actually, I'm looking pretty forward to due to some recent project that we had for the single sign-on capabilities and the going live of the identity API to the Office client, because we built some Outlook, some Word-ins for some clients, and had a big hassle in the past regarding the authentication when it comes from the add-in pane. So pretty looking forward to get this stuff live, and yeah. And especially you have this session here on the screen right now, the PR211, for example.
Yeah.
To get stuff into that.
Yeah, that's always the unsung heroes. A lot of time, well, not a lot of times, but developers will sometimes say, like, how do I get my add-in better used and those kinds of things. And really the first thing is, whether you're building an Office add-in or a Teams tab, how many clicks does it take for somebody to go get started and to go build something? And sometimes people put their payment experience up front. Sometimes people actually go ahead and have these really complicated tutorials or introductions, and then sometimes people have really complicated sign-in things. And if you really want to boost the actual engagement of your add-in, if you can use things like single sign-in, it actually makes it kind of a lot smoother, and you really narrow your funnel of adoption by sort of making that all pretty streamlined. I guess one person I'll ask, hey Ben, if you're cool with this. I know you've been working on Ignite. Any other sort of things that have come to the fore that you've seen from different sessions? I know you've probably had a lot of different sessions that you've been on, or things. Any trends or reactions to Ignite?
I don't know. The thing obviously that I've been keeping an eye on is a lot of the reaction to the same stuff. I think that Victor was interested in. Obviously, Azure Communication Services are interesting, but I think that the broader trend that they represent, which is this idea that we're starting to take different services out of the Office 365 platform, so to speak, and extending those out beyond just, let's say, the traditional data egress that we usually let people tap into from their tenants. I think the idea that we're now exposing things like DLP capabilities, e-discovery capabilities, cloud print capabilities, even, right? So there's a new set of graph services to build cloud-based print management solutions, or print service solutions. That's cool. Not to mention connectors, but there are all these different ways now in which we're taking the Microsoft Graph and starting to really expand its definition, and really to think about it as a vehicle for offering a whole different level of value, really extending our IP out to the developer community. And that's what's been interesting for me to see.
Yeah, I think that's why you can see, for example, with Azure Communication Services, it's Azure Communication Services. It's designed to be these just reusable, friendly services that you can take advantage of as a developer inside of Azure with, as straightforward and as easy to use for developers to adopt as possible. But, behind the scenes, under the covers, there's a lot of that same infrastructure that powers Microsoft Teams that powers that as well. So, we probably could have called it Microsoft Teams Communication Services Premium or something, but I think the focus and the philosophy was really to kind of have some really great services for developers in Azure, that people can go use. So, good stuff there, and I think you'll probably see more to come in that kind of similar vein. Cool. Well, keep asking questions, if you've got them. So one question is, are there any courses or certification classes that I can take that are available? And Victor sort of, quickly put the link in there. So we actually have a Microsoft 365 Developer Associate certification through Microsoft Learn. And so this is something that's, still kind of a fundamental type of certificate. It kind of, tests and quizzes your knowledge against a wide range of different topics, from SharePoint to Graph to Teams to identity and a number of topics in between. So, this is a great way to kind of go get started. And then, of course, on Microsoft Learn, we also have so many different learning paths, focused on Teams, focused on SharePoint development, focused on Microsoft 365. So, definitely do check out all the content on Microsoft Learn. There's a lot of good foundation stuff there. Of course, the other thing is, if you go to dev.microsoft.com/Microsoft365, or to, the SharePoint page or the Teams page, depending on what your interest is, you'll find things like a lot of community content, community code samples. I know, when I get time to code, I'm taking a week off next week, so I'm looking to have a developer vacation. But when I get time to code, I kind of go straight to the samples and the SDKs. And so that's something to where, there's lots of great community samples. And then the final thing I'll mention is on Microsoft 365, we have a number of community calls. So these community calls are actually a great way with a lot of the experts that you see in front of you. On a monthly basis, you'll hear a bit more about what's new and what's coming. But it's also a good conversation to just kind of immerse yourself in the kinds of practices that other people are doing as well. So lots of good stuff all across the board and the like. Another question about, anything to add regarding the Microsoft Fluid Framework and the Microsoft 365 platform? That's a great question. So we actually open sourced Fluid Framework about 3 weeks ago. So if you go to fluidframework.com, you'll see, the links to the GitHub repo and some additional resources and those kinds of things. And what Fluid Framework really focuses on is, how you can basically build more collaborative applications by embedding this, for the developers, basically you're embedding these JavaScript data structures inside of your application. And those JavaScript data structures are automatically synchronizing across a number of different clients. And so if you want to basically go build, maybe a collaborative text editor, well, you can have this shared string JavaScript object. It will do the work behind the scenes to coalesce and sort of synchronize those changes. The logic is all in the JavaScript on the client. So what that means is it's actually lightning fast because the server doesn't have to think about things. It can just broadcast them all out. And so that's now open source. It's still early days. And so we're still, working with the community to kind of further extend it. But this is the communication technology and the synchronization technology that, powers and will power a lot of the collaboration features that you see inside of Microsoft 365 too. So it's based on some principles that we put into practice as you're building out Microsoft applications. Go check it out. There's more there, and it's open source. So we also would love your contributions, your feedback, your pull requests, etc. Let's see. Yeah, Fluid Framework. Really good stuff. Really good stuff we're working towards. Oh, this seems like a great question for, for a lot of you, probably you, Ben, too. Is there a Graph Quick Start guide at that developer site? Can you post the dev URL again? So for Graph specifically, you can go to graph.microsoft.com. And what you'll find there is just a number of, different resources and tools. You'll find all the documentation. For a quick start, I don't know, would anyone have a recommendation? Maybe Ben?
I always recommend the .NET Quick Start first, but I would also say, hey, play around with Graph Explorer as another way of getting used to the toolkit. And then there's a bunch of other fun things you can do. If you want to see, like, there's a nice playground for people that want to play with the Graph toolkit, which is also super easy to use. Yeah, I mean, I think I would sort of say start with Graph Explorer, look at the Graph Toolkit, but also try one of the quick starts. Probably, I mean, go with the language that you're most comfortable with. I just always feel like, hey, that .NET one is a sort of a slam dunk, and I would go with that. So, yeah, I'll post some links into the chat for people to grab, but I'll put myself on mute while I do that.
Yeah. So there's a question about usage score from Microsoft Graph. So the question was, is usage score from Microsoft Graph still in play? It provides personalized and contextual recommendations on how to improve your score. That one, I'm sort of taking the questions as they come in. To be honest, usage score is not something. Maybe I'm missing the reference there. It could be me. What I can say is that there are, certain facets and certain insights APIs in Microsoft Graph, and those take into account, certain, anonymized trends that we see in terms of who you're connecting to provide recommendations about, for example, if you're building a people picker and I type BEN, at Microsoft, there's probably 100 Bens, but because I work a lot with Ben Summers, that takes into account recommendations to make sure that, Ben Summers is the first in the list and if I'm doing that kind of people picker. So there are some intelligence APIs like that kind of use that kind of hinting to go improve, but usage score is one that, I'm maybe not familiar with, but maybe someone else can take a crack at and go answer. Ashish, sorry, I hope you don't mind me calling on you, but how about you for Microsoft Ignite? What are some of the things that maybe you're seeing or that you're looking forward to playing with or developing around or creating some apps with? If you don't mind.
Thanks, Mike. Sure. So we have been talking the backend, the developer who is writing code in C# and JavaScript. But nowadays my work has been a lot towards the security of the work, where intelligent security graph can help us and build the things. Yeah. And it's good to see the new e-discovery and compliance thing coming to the graph, so that even IT pros can use the PowerShelling with the graph APIs to build those things and use Azure ARM templates to deploy the security solutions very quickly. The other important thing which I like to say as well, which is improving, is the low-code developer space with the teams as well. Because Teams has various extension points like tabs, bots, and messaging extensions. Now, Power Platform is supporting a lot of those, and that's very a quick start guide for anybody who would like to develop on the Teams. And if they don't know C# and JavaScript side of the world, so they can still go and build the applications in the Teams. So those are the two important things which I'm looking and keen to try out Hanks as well.
Cool. Yeah, that was actually something I was toying with trying to put a slide in here. Was if you look at like Microsoft Power Automate, it's got a number of different connectors. It's got connectors that connect back to SharePoint and to Teams and those kinds of things. I mean, those are all powered by Graph APIs, in so many different ways. And so, one way of thinking of, Power Automate in some regards is it's just a structured Graph API stitching tool. Now, of course, there's hundreds of other connectors to lots of other different backend systems, so there's a lot more sophistication there. But even if you think of Power Automate as just a way for people to kind of build applications that use Microsoft Graph, ultimately, that's kind of one way to think about it. Which is probably why a lot of developers also go ahead and they could go write a whole bunch of code to go connect different applications together. They could write their own webhooks, but a lot of times people just use Power Automate as well. At least and
supporting supporting adaptive cards and all those technologies in the Power Automating Power Apps is great to build that user experience also, and it's consistent with the developer with the low code as well. So it gives that seamless experience whether you are using C# or JavaScript or versus you are using the low code platform. Yeah, so that's very good quick starting point for anybody who is looking to build Teams apps and leverage Graph and all those things.
Yeah, I see that there's a question that Wes is taking a crack at answering around how can I connect data in a SharePoint list to my SQL data warehouse? Would Graph be a useful in this situation? Definitely, with the announcement of the lists application as a case in point, and the ability to host that in Teams, we've always been doing a little bit more work behind the scenes to make lists more scalable, more powerful, adding new column types, those kinds of things. And so, I do expect lists will be kind of an increasingly common building block in a lot of different applications. You can connect them to Power Apps, you can connect them to Power Automate, and so, I think they'll be a great tool for if you've got 10,000 items, if you've got 100,000 items. If you've got like a simple, or, it's not like a multi-outer join kind of, multi-table kind of schema, but if you want to go track a lot of different things, List will be a fantastic application to go do that. Yeah, and so as Wes mentions, you could use Azure Databricks. You could use, List has great, Microsoft Graph coverage, so you can actually get the data in and out pretty quickly. So if you did want to write like a synchronization tool or a tool to just push from List into a data warehouse, there's a lot of options there. So yeah, it can definitely be connected. I'm not sure that there's anything that's 100% push button necessarily, but yeah. Cool. Let's see. So one question asked, did I talk about developing on Surface Duo in my session at all? I'm interested. I kind of, to be honest, I kind of only mentioned it just in passing. I know we have a number of different topics that talk about Surface Duo, kind of, even dating back to January and March. But, if you look for Guy Marin, Guimerin, search for him. I mean, you'll probably find a number of different good talks on developing with the Surface Duo. There's a lot of great sort of additional SDKs for tapping into the dual screen experience, and otherwise for the most part developing a Duo application, you're developing an Android application. So there's a number of good additional APIs. We've also done some work with, for example, the Google folks and that kind of thing to make sure that all this kind of slots together so that as you're building a dual screen experience, it can all connect together fairly well. So I'll maybe go try to see if I can't find a link to some of those talks and conversations. Oh, well, Ashish added a great link. Thanks a lot, Ashish, as well. So good stuff. All right. Well, continuing around the tour of different folks and getting their kind of different live reactions to everything that's going on at Ignite. Let me go pull it up. So Kumar, I don't know if you're comfortable speaking. Don't mean to put you too much on the spot, but any sort of features or capabilities or things that are, sort of exciting or connecting for you from Build? I mean, from Ignite. Darn it! I think that's the second time I've done that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This is a phenomenal year for Microsoft Teams, and we have been doing a lot, especially from a graph perspective. And there's one thing that I would like to call out, which had a lot of attraction, is actually inside out and outside in, whereby we bring a lot more application into meetings to give a safe experience. That's actually one of the component or element that has been heavily looked at. And it's a great news to our ISV as well as our pros and out there. And we strongly encourage to take advantage and then bring a lot more applications and also the workloads to be integrated directly. Yeah.
Yes. So a little quiet, but yeah, definitely a lot of the Teams capabilities and the meeting extensibility inside of Microsoft Teams. I think we found that, for example, before COVID, and of course working from home and all that kind of thing, we had kind of, on an average day, you'd have something like 500 million meeting minutes. Now we're kind of into the 4 billion, and plus kind of, meeting minutes a day, inside of Microsoft Teams. In other words, kind of roughly on average, we have, 8 times the amount of time that's spent in meetings. So, being able to tap into that, add your apps to meetings, I think will be super cool. I'm sure there's going to be some really great ideas out there that we haven't thought of yet. So, definitely it's a case of we really look forward to seeing what you all build. See, I think we're almost coming up on time before the second run of the session actually kicks off fairly soon. So if you didn't get to see DB146, reimagining work with the Microsoft 365 platform, you'll get to see me and Ian Arenas, and they'll kind of cover a number of the different technologies. They'll go into a little bit more depth on this. And so you'll see a lot of good stuff there if you haven't had the opportunity to go check it out. I think that, if there's any last minute questions or feedback or comments, I think we're probably almost about covered. So yeah, so with all that, thanks so much for actually attending this Ask the Expert session. Thanks so much for your questions. It was great having everyone on board to kind of get your feedback to Ignite. So I learned a lot for sure. It's probably not the usual way, But thanks everyone for joining in and for connecting to this Ask the Expert session.